All right, today we're unpacking an absolutely fantastic story. It's got a bit of everything. It's funny, it's tense, it's all about a doctor, a mirror, and, well, a very unexpected guest. This one is a wild ride, blending pure terror with some seriously funny moments.
I mean, talk about starting with a bang, right? The story just throws this question at you and you're immediately hooked. This is how our narrator, who happens to be a homeopathic doctor, kicks off this unbelievable story he's telling his friends.
Okay, so let's paint a picture. Our guy, the doctor, he gets back to his place. It's a small, rented room, and it is a sweltering hot summer night. And here's the kicker: no electricity. Oh, and his only roommates? A bunch of rats that are constantly running around the place. Lovely.
So how's he doing financially? Well, this number, it says it all. He's just getting his practice started, and his earnings are, let's just say, not great. He calls them meager himself. 60 rupees. That's everything he has. So yeah, definitely not living the high life. And his stuff, well, it's just as modest as his bank account. You've got the basics, but hang on. See that large mirror and that small comb? Even though he doesn't have much, these two things kind of give us a little hint, a clue, about what's really on his mind. And trust me, that's going to be a huge deal later on.
Okay, so this is where things get really interesting, because the way he sees himself and his actual life, they're on two completely different planets. It's too hot to sleep, so what does he do? He plops down right in front of that mirror. Yep, that one symbol of pride in his otherwise super simple room.
And you can just imagine what's going through his head, right? He thinks, hey, I'm not just anybody, I'm a doctor, and I'm single. So he feels like he's got to look the part. He needs to project this image of success, even if his room doesn't exactly scream successful doctor.
So, as he's checking himself out in the mirror, he makes, wait for it, two earth-shaking decisions. I love that he calls them that. And what are they? Well, they're all about building this persona, the handsome, available, and totally successful doctor.
Oh, and it doesn't stop there. His little daydream session moves on to his future wife, and boy does he have some specific criteria. First, she's got to be a doctor with a lot of cash. Okay, that makes sense. But then, she has to be fat. Why? So if he ever messes up and needs to make a run for it, she won't be able to catch him. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. But right when he's deep in these, let's be honest, pretty self-absorbed fantasies, something shifts. You know those rats he's used to hearing? They go completely silent. And that sudden quiet, it's the kind that makes the hair on your arms stand up. Something's not right. And then he hears it. A dull thud. Kind of like a rubber tube hitting the floor. At first, he doesn't think much of it, but he turns around to check it out. And that one simple action, that turn, is about to change everything. And bam, it happens so fast, the exact moment he turns, a big fat snake wriggles off the back of his chair and lands right on his shoulder. Just like that, all those thoughts about mustaches and rich wives, gone. Poof. Because now there's a full-blooded cobra on him. And you can bet all that vanity, all those daydreams, they just evaporate. In their place is pure, absolute, paralyzing fear. He's not some handsome doctor admiring himself anymore. Nope, now he's just prey.
He's completely frozen. I mean, what can you do? He doesn't jump, doesn't scream, he can't. He just sits there as this snake coils around his left arm, and the cobra's head, with its hood spread wide, is maybe 3 or 4 inches from his face. Unbelievable.
So yeah, he's literally turned to stone. His mind is going a million miles an hour, of course, but his body, it's like a statue. He's just sitting there, holding his breath under the light of that little kerosene lamp in pure, absolute terror.
And he can feel it. The pressure on his arm is immense. He describes it like a rod of molten fire, just slowly, powerfully crushing him. He knows death is right there, just inches away. And the worst part? He's a doctor, but there's not a single medicine in his room that could save him if that snake decides to stray.
And right there, in that moment of pure life or death danger, something clicks. He has this massive realization. All that pride, all those plans, all that vanity, it just melts away when you're staring death in the face. He suddenly sees himself for who he really is. Not some big-shot, handsome doctor, but just in his own words, a poor, foolish, and stupid doctor. And what's wild is that he actually forgets his fear for a second and just smiles. A tiny, weak smile at how silly he's been.
And this is where the story flips the script.
with a huge, delicious dose of irony. The second our doctor finally lets go of his vanity, the snake gets distracted by the exact same thing.
You are not going to believe this. This snake, it turns its head away from the doctor and looks right into the mirror. It sees its own reflection, and just like our doctor a few minutes ago, it seems totally captivated.
So the doctor's just sitting there thinking, wait a minute, is this snake admiring its own beauty? Is it trying to decide if it should grow a mustache too? I mean, the whole situation is so absurd he can't help but go there.
So the snake unwinds from his arm and slithers over to the table to get a better look at itself in the mirror. And that's it. That's the doctor's chance. He doesn't think twice. He slowly, quietly gets up, slips out the door, and then he just runs for his life. He doesn't stop running until he crashes at his friend's house.
But the story isn't over yet, not by a long shot. He goes back to his room the next day, and guess what? A thief has cleaned him out, stole pretty much everything. And the final insult? The only thing the thief left behind was his dirty vest. And get this, remember his plan to marry a rich, fat woman? Well, he ends up marrying a thin woman who's a super fast runner, the complete opposite of his grand plan.
And that's how the doctor finishes his story. He says he never saw that snake again. And he's totally convinced, to this day, that it was the snake's own vanity, its fascination with its own beauty, that saved his skin.
It's such a brilliant story. The doctor escaped the snake, sure, but it leaves you thinking, doesn't it? It kind of poses this final question. What's the real danger here? The snake wrapped around your arm or the vanity that lives inside your own head?